welcome everyone to Startup Grind. We are live streaming as well on Facebook and LinkedIn. So if you want to go over there, you can also like and chat, or actually you have the links to ask questions in Slido. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, we are taking questions via Slido, and then Lorenzo will ask me those questions via LOD. This is the first time we're doing a hybrid event. So for those of you out there online, we have people in the audience and you guys out there online as well. So let's see how this works. But thank you all for coming and joining us today. Thank you to Wies for hosting us, and especially thank you, Wies, for taking your time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Hopefully the audio works well as well online. Let's just jump right in. There's a lot of technicalities to set up when you're doing a hybrid event, and so I've been running back and forth between the technical side and you guys here in the physical. But excited to be here today on Friday at lunch. Also a first time doing a lunch event. But we like to start with understanding a little bit more about you personally, about where you come from. Where did you grow up? Are you from Switzerland? Are you Swiss?
Very not Swiss, although I have Swissified a little bit because you were slightly surprised that we were starting on time, and I'm like, well, this is how I roll now. It's definitely not how I used to roll. I can tell you that. I'm from Holland originally. I'm Dutch.
Okay.
I have a funny last name, which is due to my British husband, but otherwise very Dutch. So I grew up there and moved away, lived there, studied there, and then worked there for a couple of years in Amsterdam, and then moved to Hong Kong many years ago, where Lorenzo and I met. Do you remember? I think it was in Japan when we first met, but in Asia anyway.
Those were times that are not so easy to remember after all the drinking.
I have no idea what he's talking about, obviously. Those were the days. Yeah, so we were in Asia for a while, and then about 6 years ago we came here to Switzerland, and I'm on the brink of moving back to Holland. So this is really fun being here, because on Monday pretty much is when we're packing up the house and moving back after almost 9 years abroad. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
crazy times.
And as a kid, as a child, what did you think you'd do when you grow up?
Interesting. Haven't thought about that a long time. I really wanted to be a vet when I was really little. Then realized I can't deal with pain and seeing other people. I can't, or blood or anything. I get very nervous around that. So that was kind of out of the window pretty quickly. And then I became obsessed with becoming a lawyer very quickly, which is fairly random. But I think it was this idea that I could stand up and advocate for people, and I was really like, I'm going to change the world. That was my vision. I definitely didn't think I'd become an entrepreneur. I had a lot of respect for entrepreneurs, but it was very much something that other people did, that other people were good at.
Was there any influence in your family, or anyone close that was?
My dad was an entrepreneur before he got sick. He got sick long time ago and couldn't work anymore, but before that he had his own business. And maybe that was why I didn't think I could do it, because I didn't like what I was seeing there, basically, necessarily. My brother is an entrepreneur. I'm incredibly proud of him. He started a couple of years before me, and definitely has been an inspiration in terms of it's possible, right?
But not for you.
It's still definitely
No, I mean
wasn't a thing.
back then.
When he started, no, it was him doing it, and he's incredibly successful. He does things I can't even explain. That's how complicated they are, and it was again something that he could do, but not necessarily for me. So that's been quite a process. I would say
you went into corporate. You decided just to go the traditional way.
Very traditional. I mean, big law, right? Like, it doesn't get more traditional than what I did, basically. Which was because of that obsession with law and advocating for others. I really thought I was going to make people fix their problems and talk to each other and kind of, as I'm saying it, I'm laughing. Really be nice to each other and like become friends and like be good and like solve the the disagreements between them. I honestly thought that. turns out that's not quite what you do when you join a law firm. There's a lot of pushing around paper and a lot of writing and a lot of those papers never being read by anyone else, but then charging a lot of money for them. So I did that for a couple of years before I realized, that's not it. It's not really it for me. Yeah. So I went the traditional route, and after that I joined in Asia. I couldn't do law there. I would have to retrain and take all kinds of exams, which I wasn't keen on. And so I joined the organization that I met Lorenzo at, which is a large private education company, as their head of HR, or director, I'm not sure what it was called, but for Asia. So I set up HR, they didn't have it yet, in Asia for this organization, which was a ton of fun. And I think that's where kind of my entrepreneurial journey started, if you may say, because obviously I was an entrepreneur, I was working for this organization. However, they're very entrepreneurial in spirit. So it's a massive billion-dollar company, but they have a very entrepreneurial mindset, which is fantastic. So I was able to build stuff. HR didn't really exist. And so not being hindered by any prior knowledge, I was able to set that up for Asia, do my best at least to build kind of a structure, which, if you look at it officially, theoretically speaking, it's not, definitely was my own company, right? But it was very entrepreneurial, I would say, in spirit.
And
so
you had to take the charge and take the lead and figure it out.
Yeah, very little help. Zero. Figure it out. Plus, it was a whole new area. I mean, I was a lawyer, now I did HR. So I had no prior knowledge about the field, the location. I mean, a whole new continent, obviously a very different way of working.
And then what was it that sort of, was there a point where you felt corporate is not for me, I want to do something else? Or was it more your idea that you got this spark, this idea that made you want to change? How did that transition? Or
oh man, it's I think
was there a moment where you
well, it had to be done basically. So what happened was the following. So in my time at EF, this company, I was running workshops for people across the globe about negotiation, because that was the one thing I knew about, right? I knew more than most other people. And so whenever I had a meeting anywhere in the world, I would tag on a training for the people that were there, right? In the office, it would literally be like a little poster, like meet there and then, right? And we'd have this session. And one of the things that came out of those sessions that I did, that across the world, the women afterwards would gather around me and they would tell me how much they sucked at negotiation and how important it was. And it was the same story, whether I was in Vietnam or whether I was in London or in Stockholm, wherever, it didn't matter. And so what I realized from that was that there is this great big freaking need for women to help them in their negotiations, right? The negotiations for themselves on their own behalf, basically. So that was kind of the idea of, okay, there is this need. Then when we moved here to Switzerland, I continued working, doing the work that I was doing before, which is HR, and then later I went into legal here. And I continued running these sessions, and I kind of built it into a program for pretty much my friends and family. Like I put up a post on Facebook. I said, who is interested in doing this? Who wants to learn, basically? And so we started this training program, basically. I just wanted to check there, is it just my idea, or is there really a need for this? And am I able to help these women? And so I did that, and that was fairly successful. I always feel like I should apologize to these women because they gave so much of their time, and looking back, it wasn't very good, right, compared to what we're doing now. But it was fun, at least, and it was clear that there was a need. And so that was kind of in the back of my mind as a passion project, and I wanted to devote more time to it, but I had this really demanding job, right? Like, which way am I going to go? I wasn't sure. And so I was kind of debating that for a while, because I wasn't an entrepreneur, right? I mean, I was not going to do this. It was too big a step, it felt like. And then, but I knew I didn't want to continue in corporate because it wasn't ultimately working for my family. I was working too hard, I was traveling too much, my husband was doing the same. It was just too much. And then I got sick. So the decision was sort of taken for me. From one day to the next, I got very ill. I had a perforated colon, which is incredibly disgusting, but it basically means that you're... Anyway, no need to go into that. I got very sick, and I was in hospital for a long time, and then I recuperated at home for a very long time. So I always describe that period as staring at the ceiling for 5 months. And I couldn't really move, I couldn't do much. So I had a lot of time to think, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. But anyway, I realized after this, or in this time, I realized if I'm gonna do this thing, I have to do it. Like, I can't arse about with demanding job on one hand and this passion project on the other. It's one or the other. And also I realized if I do continue in another demanding job, and there's no such thing, I can't do half-arsed. So it's either I go for it or not, right? So I was like, either I take another sort of corporate job, or in which case I'll probably get sick again, because this was all, my colon issues were all stress-related, right? So I was like, I'm gonna get sick again. So that was even what the doctor said to me, is like, if you want to not see me in 6 months' time again,
something has to change.
Something's really got to change.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a decision, and then I thought, bugger it, life's too short. So let's just do this. So that's when I kind of became an entrepreneur against my will, in a way. And the reason was both practical, the kind of, physically I needed to do that. But the other push really was that this mission that I was on, right, the work that I was doing in this program meant so much to me. And I felt I could really make a difference there when the pushing around paper, right, ultimately wasn't that fulfilling. And so it was that final push of, if I don't want to do this, if I don't want to continue doing that, and if I really want to live that mission, which is something that I tell people all the time, right? Life is short, and you've only got one shot at it. Why the heck am I not doing that myself? Right. So that was, final. So
what's the elevator pitch for, or the short introduction to your business?
What I do. So I teach women negotiation skills. I focus mostly on career and salary negotiation, so women in corporate employment, making sure that they get the promotions and the jobs that they want, and the salary. And then I have started looking at helping women who own their own business, service-based business, helping them basically set their prices and the conversations around those prices, right? So not finding the clients to pay for them, but then once they already have the clients, I'm not good at marketing. I know bugger all about marketing. So, but if you have people coming in, right, lead flow, then I can help you make sure that they convert, they become your clients. Is it very obvious that I'm not good at marketing? This pitch was like worst case ever. I don't really think about this, but yeah. Okay. So I do those two things. And I have online programs for that. That's what I do. So I coach them.
A lot of founders, or at least usually you hear from successful founders, that it made a big difference for them being able to work in a team. Whereas in your case, I guess you would identify more as a solopreneur. I have
quite a few. I have a few people that I work with. I mean, officially it's, they're entrepreneurs themselves, right?
Well, in the beginning, you started by yourself, and it took a while before you...
I did everything, yes.
Before you could build a team.
Yeah.
And so but I guess it's interesting because now you do have a team, and you're working with people, and it brings that balance. But during the time where you were building the company on your own, how was that? And how does it compare to the setup you have now?
I much prefer this. Although I probably am the worst boss ever, I'm very reliant on people doing what they're good at. That's why I hire you, kind of thing, is my thinking. But that I often underestimate how much love they need. So shout out to my girls, So there's that. How did I enjoy? I don't know. When I was on my own, I have a very extroverted side, and then I've found out also in the pandemic that I have this introverted side. I kind of like being on my own, but no, I think it was okay to be on my own after all these years working in large teams and with other people, because I had my clients. I have awesome clients. I have really fantastic, like wonderful women that I worked with. So it never really felt lonely because I always had these very steady interactions with them. So I can't quite say that it was ever a massive issue for me. But I do enjoy having my chicks, like my girls, my team, now on a much more regular basis, working with me. Yes, for sure. It's better. Yeah.
And what would you say to a young you regarding your entrepreneurial journey?
Should have done it years ago. No, actually not, to be honest. Because, was it Steve Jobs who said afterwards you can connect the dots, right? Without any of the roles that I've had, I couldn't do what I do now. I am good at what I do now because I've had all those different roles. So in a way, I shouldn't have started earlier because then I would have sucked probably. I'm not sure if it would have been as good. So what would be my advice? I don't know. Yeah, probably still that. I think I didn't need to spend 5 months thinking about it. I should have spent those 5 months better in building my imperium from my laptop, probably. But yeah.
And in the meantime, have you experienced any I've made it moments?
Does anyone ever? I don't know. God, you got me there. No. I don't think so. When lovely people like you come in and say, I'm here for you, then I kind of feel like Beyonce a little bit. Like I'm like, ooh. I don't know. There is so much work to be done.
So the opposite of that, was there a time that you failed?
All the time, every day. Business? Literally every day I fuck up. Sorry, earmuffs. I don't know. I think...
how do you deal with failure? And so two questions. You said there's a daily failures that you experience.
Yes.
But then has there been a situation where like you almost lost your business or like a significant challenge that you really made a mistake in your business and in your work? And how did you deal with that?
It was a very complex situation, which I won't bore you with the details of, but there has been once where, very early on actually, first 3 months or so of my business, short story is that I was in New York and I was supposed to fly to the other side of the States for an event that I had somebody else organize for me. And she called me up, kid you not guys, this is so funny, right? So middle of the night, or anyway, early in the morning, she calls me up, she goes, we have a little bit of an issue. We have 2 sign-ups for this event. And I'm like, wait, what? So anyway, that became a bit of a struggle, and that didn't finish pretty because I couldn't take 3 days of my time at the time for an event where 2 people were going to be. So that didn't finish very well. So I learned there this is kind of my Achilles heel. I am very good at certain things and I'm very terrible at a lot of other things. And so for the things that I'm terrible at, I hope that people will help me that are really good at that. And then I want you to do your magic. I like, you do you, right? That's the reason why I'm asking you. And so this was a very clear case of that, where I just relied on the fact that she said she was going to do this, then go and do your thing, right? Go and make it happen, without me checking in any way, shape or form whether this was actually happening. And so this ended up, this was what ended up happening. And I think I still definitely do that too much. Mm-hmm. How I deal with failure, I've got a couple of techniques that I teach my clients as well, which I don't know if any of you heard of EFT tapping, which is a really woohoo thing that works really, really well. And the other thing that I do when things bugger up is that my standard question, even my kids, my daughters will tell you, my standard question when something goes wrong is, what can we learn from this? Mm-hmm. What can we learn from this? So really focusing on the good of that situation. Right. So I think that's incredibly powerful because you can't really change what has happened, but you can hopefully, learn from it for the future.
Change your reaction to it.
That as well, yes. So focusing on yourself rather than on the things that you can't influence, for sure. But if I fucked it up, right, buggered it up, then obviously, yeah, look at what did I do wrong, and then how can I prevent that in the future, or how can I do better in the future, basically. Yeah.
Okay. And as far as so it's more recently that you've been starting dealing with entrepreneurs. It's been mainly in the corporate space, right?
Yeah.
But what advice would you give to someone wanting to start a business, wanting to become an entrepreneur, launch their own business today?
Do it. I'm so like appreciative and excited about people taking kind of their life into their own hands and taking control. So I'm a big fan of people, women especially, starting their own business, because I've seen for myself how freaking magical it can be, and how truly creating something out of nowhere is a wonder. Yeah, it's a truly wonderful thing. So yay, go do it would be my first advice. And secondly, get paid properly, and really don't underestimate the value that you put out.
Right.
So there's a lot of what I would consider unhelpful advice when it comes to women starting in their business, which has a lot to do with, well, you need to prove yourself first, and then you need to do things for free, and you need to show up and make yourself known, and then once people know what you can do, hopefully they'll pay you. I think it's, you're completely, if you're not getting paid for the value that you're putting out, or you're getting paid too little, you're really just teaching the other side that your work has little value. That's the message that you're giving off. So if I can do anything in changing that, then, then that would be time well spent. I really feel very strongly about making sure that you get paid your work, not just from the sort of principled point of view, right? You should get, it should be valued, but also from a very practical point of view. You need cash, man. You need running a business, right? You need money to invest in your business. You need money to invest in yourself, and I think a lot of beautiful dreams die an early death because people run out of money. And it's kind of like they go in with their entire hearts and their lives, and they put everything on the line, and then just because their pricing strategy sucks, right, it all kind of peters out. And it's not because they didn't have a great idea. It's not because they didn't work hard enough. It's quite the opposite. They probably worked way too hard for too little return, and then it's like, yeah, this isn't working, right? And so, that just, kills me. Yeah.
I have two questions from the public exactly on these. Shall we take
Perfect,
them now?
yes.
The first one is, how do you advise women to work with unconscious biases in negotiations for themselves?
Work with, or what?
How do you advise women to work with unconscious biases in negotiations for themselves?
Yeah. But this is why it's so difficult. Huh? There's a lot of unconscious biases in the workforce. Women, sort of these internal barriers and then these external barriers, right? Which are the unconscious biases that you're talking about. One of them being, for example, that as women you're quickly found too assertive, too strong, aggressive, too out there, too greedy. All of these things that we're thinking for ourselves is definitely also what other people, the research is very clear on this, other people feel the same way about us when we're stepping up and speaking up and asking for ourselves. Another, when the focus is basically on us. So what I would suggest is that you actually work with the expectation that is placed upon you, which is that you're nice and that you're thinking about the other side and that you're focused on others, right? Rather than fighting that and pretending that you are something that you're not, which is a dude, right? And kind of like stepping up and like, I'm going to be as hard as I can be, etc. Work with that expectation and sort of lean into that. It doesn't mean that you should flutter with your eyelashes and sort of only be smiley. What it means is that you focus heavily on what the other side needs and wants, both in a corporate setting and as an entrepreneur, right? You focus not on yourself, because nobody cares about you. Everybody cares about themselves, right? So work with that. Focus on the other side. Do exactly as you've been told from when you were little, that you have to look out for others first. Do that. And then just don't make the mistake that at the end you forget about yourself completely, right? So that at the end you go, I'll do all of those things for you for free or for little or whatever, right? So at the end you need to make sure and say, okay, so in order to do this fantastic thing that we are going to do together, the way that I work best is if I'm valued for this. So this is what the research then tells me you should pay me. So that's whether that's as an entrepreneur, right, or in a corporate setting. Bring the data, not the drama, is my other favorite, one of my favorite sayings that I'll have tattooed on my forehead one day. Meaning that you rely on objective standards to discuss the payment. But I would say lean in to the bias rather than fighting it, which might seem counterintuitive, but I've seen this work a lot better.
Another question is there any difference as a female entrepreneur in negotiating funding with investors?
Yes, don't want to give the obvious answer is it's really difficult to get. But the sad reality is that the numbers are pretty, they're stacked against us as women, right?
So the real question is how do you deal with that? Because we all know that there's a challenge there. There's a challenge in negotiating, your salary in corporate. There's a challenge in selling yourself as an entrepreneur, and there's a challenge in fundraising as a woman.
Yeah.
So I guess it's similar to what you said as far as the lean in, I guess. But what would you say to fundraising women who are in that process of fundraising?
Two things. One is be incredibly well prepared with the data, right? So have all of that ready. And the other thing is take the approach the relationship approach that a lot of men take in this respect, which is that the decision is not just made in the meeting room during your presentation. The meeting or the decision is taken before, it's taken afterwards, it's taken in all the little sort of contact moments. And I think as women, we have this tendency, I'm generalizing here massively, but maybe you'll recognize some of this, that as women we have a tendency to, both in a corporate setting and as entrepreneurs, we do the work. We're really good at it, right? So 100% of our time we're focused, we're sitting behind our computers and we're like busy bee, right? Doing the work, making sure that we are super prepared, making sure that all the, T's are crossed, I's are dotted, whatever it is, right? So we're doing all of that. And then we turn up to the meeting thinking this is our moment to shine, this is where it all needs to happen, right? And then we do our thing and then we bugger off again. So whereas, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the guys, they walk together to the meeting room and they discuss here and there and then they, play golf or whatever they do or squash or whatever, right, on the weekends. And there's all these extra contact moments and there's all these extra meeting moments. They'll just rock up to offices. They'll just say, hey, let's go for lunch, right? We make a really big deal out of that. It's like, we can't do all these things. So we take a much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like formalistic, kind of professional approach of like, this is how we do things. It's not how it works. Huh? People don't make decisions based on just the numbers. It's like a hygiene factor. They need to be there, right? Your ID needs to be good. You need to know your numbers. You need to have a good proposal. But people ultimately take decisions based on emotions. And really, whether they like you or not. Now, you can't change the fact that you're a woman and the person investing you is most likely a dude, right? Those are just kind of the numbers. So you can't change the fact that you're a woman. Definitely don't try and change the fact that you're a woman. Like, don't try and be a dude. Just take inspiration, I would say, from that relationship approach and that kind of seeing the whole relationship in a broader context and leaning into that and working with that.
Okay. Do we have any questions thank you. Yes, spot on. Do we have any questions here from our local audience?
And then you will be on the camera.
Adding the pressure even more.
Yeah, on the guy in the mask.
If not, at any point in time, if someone has a question, just raise your hand and we'll take a question. Oh, yeah, one.
Hello,
Hi.
thank you. Thanks for the talk. I come from an academic background, and I'm curious, what are the most common, if you have seen transitions from which fields into entrepreneurship? What do you see most often? Let's say scientist or librarian, or where do you see the most common area where people come from and decide to become an entrepreneur?
I would say the technical space, and this is probably not my strongest point because I help a lot of women in academia transition to corporate. That's usually the joint that they make, which is really fun because it's really easy to be successful. You just need to flip that understanding from, oh, I'm just from academia, to holy crap, I'm from academia, you're gonna love me, right? So we can work with that easily. The transition to entrepreneur, I don't see that much, but I would say mostly in the kind of tech space. And taking tech as a really broad term, right? But where they then have some kind of invention, some kind of system, some kind of idea that they can turn into a business. Yeah.
So would you say creativity is the main drive for this desire to change?
I think creativity is the source of everything. Yeah, that probably is a massive cliche, but I truly believe that. I think the most important quality that anybody, especially entrepreneurs, but I think anybody should cultivate in themselves, in their kids, I mean, it's what I do, it's creativity in the broader sense. Coming up with good solutions to problems. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the talk. What are the 3 biggest mistakes and most common mistakes in negotiation you see that people should avoid at all costs?
Oh.
The 3 things we just shouldn't be doing.
I was going to say, how long do you have? Holy crap.
We still have 30 minutes.
Okay, very good. What are the 3 things? Guys, I have a terrible memory, so you're going to have to help me here. The biggest...
So repeat the question.
What are the 3 worst mistakes you can make in a negotiation, right? I would say the first is not to have it, which is a bit of a, sorry about that. But it's true. A large majority of women would rather go to the dentist than negotiate. That's a problem because then they just won't do it. And if they don't do it, weirdly enough, the money isn't just dropped in your lap, the promotions aren't just dropped in your lap, the business opportunities aren't just given to you or handed to you on a silver platter, right? So you're missing massive opportunities if you're not negotiating. So the first thing would be have the damn frickin' conversation, right? Second thing is don't underestimate yourself. That tends to happen. Women expect to be paid between 3 and 32% less for the same work as dudes do when they feel the same way about their skills and qualities. Right? So it's got all of that's equal. They just expect to be paid less for it. That's a lot of money, huh? As entrepreneurs and if you're in corporate, it adds up very, very quickly. So I would say those 2 things. What's another mistake? Not preparing properly. You'd be surprised how often when I talk about negotiations with people, they'll tell me, well, I'm just going to go in, just going to see what they've got to say, I'm just going to listen, and then, it'll be fine, right? Like, I guess because of that fear, they'd rather, ostrich approach, right? I'd rather just not think about it at all than prep. Whereas prep, really, that's where the magic is. So I said it before, right? Bring the data, not the drama. That requires quite a lot of preparation. So in a corporate context, that would be doing intensive research as to what your value is, what other people get paid, right? So salary benchmarking research. And just do it so that when you walk in, you have that data on hand. There's about 10 more things I could add to this, but if you're asking for 3, those are coming up straight away. Oh, and another, I'm switching it from what you should not do to what you should do. So here's the advice. Practice. Really, really practice. That's, part of that, I don't want to do this, is walking in and expecting yourself to do awesome right off the bat. right? Like you're setting yourself up for failure if that's your approach. So grab your partner, grab your best friend, grab your colleague, grab another entrepreneur, right, that you're working with, sit them down, tell them who they're going to pretend to be, right, and role play the heck out of your conversation, out of your negotiation until you feel ready, until you feel like, okay, you know, I've worked through all the stress, I've had all the weird responses or all the fears that I have, right, inside of me that what might happen. I've road tested all of them. I've checked what my responses were. The other side has said, yeah, that kind of works, right? I feel ready. So that when you walk into the meeting room, right, you're like, bring it on. Come on, give it to me. If you have that approach, you really can't bugger it up. And you'd be surprised how many people don't bother. I'm like, right? We spend hundreds of hours, thousands of hours in our education, right? In whether we become entrepreneurs or we work in corporate, we spend years and years working so hard to get to that moment where we get hired or not hired, and then we don't do that, right? Like, it makes no sense to me. So yeah, prepare.
In that regard, a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You say salary data, that you should bring salary data
Yeah.
along. I've done that once and I found it very difficult to actually find good data in Switzerland for certain markets. So where do you find that tool? And how do you propose that we best go about that?
So when it comes to salary research, right, there's a lot of online, so I always talk about qualitative and quantitative research. So the quantitative research is everything that you can find online. So it's glassdoor.com, LinkedIn now has a salary calculator, right? There's a couple here in Switzerland that are, I'm sure that you guys know amongst yourself, I can't ever remember the names, but there's a couple of websites that give you pretty precise data as well. It depends on the job, of course, right? Some are easier to find than others. So do that research. It will give you some kind of, you know, it aggregates, right, information from a lot of different data points, and it will give you a range of what you could expect for a certain position in a certain location, right? And by the way, please fill out that you're a boy if they're asking for your gender, because there's really no need to, right, to sort of set yourself up for 20% less already and, you know, continue that story. So, but that's another matter, right? So fill that out and you'll get a certain idea. And then contact all the people that you know that are doing that role or that might know somebody or have done the role, right? Who would be able to give you personal information, which very much includes headhunters. So spend a couple of hours on the phone talking to your new best friend, these headhunters, right, who have basically a combination of qualitative and quantitative data, right? They've worked with this position a number of times. This is not the first time, right? They'll have placed other people who in those roles, so they'll have those numbers. And they have the insights, right, also from the company perspective. So you can kind of test your aggregate numbers against what they say. Right, so you can just tell them the same as your, you know, friends and family and people that you know that are in those roles. I would suggest that you don't ask them, what are you making, you know, or what did you make when you had this role? It gets a little bit funky. Some people are not comfortable with that, so it's better to ask indirectly and kind of go. So I've been doing my research, right? This is what I found. Does that sound just about right to you? And then people start talking. It's really fun. Then when it's that indirect, right, they go, and you'll get your information usually. So this will take a couple days, a couple of hours. You know, this is it's a decent chunk of your time, which is the bit where I'm like, yeah, you wanna invest that because the outcome, right, is so incredibly huge for the rest of your life, for your career. So spend the time on that because it'll be totally worth it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very cool. Very helpful.
Good.
I'm learning too.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I work with women, right? And I really focus on women. And then there's always a couple dudes who go like, but I have the same issues. Right? Like, can you help me as well?
Can I put on a wig and sneak in?
Yeah. No, unfortunately not. But yes. Yeah.
I had a question about going back a little bit to the entrepreneurial aspect and business, running a business. And not everyone has kids, but you do. You have family, but how do you find that balance between work and your private life and your personal self? The big question of work-life balance.
So we talked about this before, and I told David, don't ask me that question because I'm terrible at it. So thanks. Yeah. No, I'm not very good at that. This idea, right? This wonderfully naive and beautiful idea that most entrepreneurs that I know have before they start their journey is like, I get to run my own hours, and so I'll just do, I'll just start doing yoga and I'll start doing all these things, right? I'll have time for everything, and then it turns out that it's quite the opposite, especially at the start, for sure. I am not very good at balancing things. I'm either all in or not. And so I'm probably the worst person to ask that question of. I am blessed with a partner who is more than doing his fair share. I really think the division is more like 70-30 in our household, where he's doing 70% than more, than 50-50. He definitely does more, and we also have an au pair. So full disclosure, that was a game changer, right? Having help at home is a game changer, made life a lot easier. But it's very much also my partner, and so I'm saying I'm blessed, kind of quote unquote, because on the one hand, yes, I'm very lucky that he's like that. I feel incredibly lucky that he is. He really does so much, right? Like otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am today. On the other hand, that's also a discussion, right? It's not like he just, he was that person already. It's also kind of a give and take and sort of a growing up together and learning together, and very much me. I can't believe I'm saying this word, but I'm going to do it anyway. Training. Right, him, in a way, it's not me training him in any way, shape, or form. But I think it is me realizing what is happening in a relationship, what needs to happen in a relationship, and then having difficult conversations around that. So he is a completely freaking wonderful person, and it's the fact that I have made sure that we have these conversations and that, it is a fair.
Everyone's on board.
Yes, very much so.
And for someone who doesn't have, or you don't, have a service where someone can use that special person as well that does so much. No.
No, I don't. No.
It's only yours.
Yeah.
For someone who doesn't have someone who can share so much of the load.
Yeah.
How would you? Any tips for? Well, so you said you are not very good at that yourself, but how do you find time for yourself, and what do you do to take care of yourself so that even in your startup and in your business you don't have the same burnout you had in the corporate?
Honestly, I'm so bad at it that it's my body that really tells me to stop. So I either get issues with my colon again and get called back that way, or the most recent thing has been migraines, which is debilitating. So I honestly still don't feel like equipped to give you any kind of good advice here. I am not very good at self-care in the traditional sense. I think I am wildly aware of the importance of the right mindset for everything in life. So both in terms of sort of content-wise, what I teach my clients, and myself as an entrepreneur, it all starts with mindset. And it's such a like, I feel like such a tree hugger when I say that, but that does sort of, I think, you can almost not call it self-care because it's like in line with my business, right? I have to do this in order to be successful in my business. But I do spend quite a chunk of time meditating and doing that. And recently my new form of meditation has been cycling. We bought a very fancy race bike. And so I've really enjoyed that, being outside together actually with my husband. And sort of, spending time on that. But that happens at 6 a.m., right? Because I can't still do that sort of during the day, or, right. I don't really have that time yet. Or I'm not making that time,
I think the thing that stood out to me is that, A, you're aware of it, and maybe you're not doing the traditional things of stopping work at 6 or whatever, but you're aware of it, and also the mindset aspect I think plays a much bigger role in everything that we do. So yes, you can push to the limit if you have the right mindset, and ideally, like you said, you're still figuring that out. We don't wait for our bodies to say this is it.
Yeah.
But the mindset that plays such a big role in how we react and respond and deal with the challenges we face on a day-to-day basis. And that's the main thing I am getting from you.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think I'll ever shortchange. Kind of that it really. There's such a direct correlation for me, so obvious between where I am mentally and where my business is. It's so direct that it's hard to ignore, right? So that will be the first thing that I go to. If that's a part of self-care, then I guess I'm good at that. This whole idea of sitting down and reading a book, or I don't watch TV, so I don't have that as an outlet. I don't like it. But the whole idea of sitting down and not doing anything, I get nervous. I don't even, that's just not me. I'm at work, and I love my work so much, right? So this will be, I think most entrepreneurs will recognize this. I would rather work, and by that I mean coach my clients or read a book about, the work that I do, or learn or develop that way, or work on my program, or do something like that, write about what I do. Then, I don't know, what do people do when they relax? Like, I don't watch TV, for example. Like, I have no interest in that, right? And there's a lot of things that I have no interest in.
So you don't watch TikTok?
No. That's not on TV, is it?
Well,
I'm so uncool.
Well, nowadays TV is, in your hand. So.
Okay, yeah. So I just about know what it is. So yeah, no, I don't do any of that. So it's, I think I am very unbalanced in that sense, and at the same time, I guess balanced if you see that the work that I do it truly is my joy. I freaking love it. I love it so much. So in that sense, I do it, I guess, to some extent. Hey.
And for founders who are wearing multiple hats, especially in the beginning when you're starting, is there something that you discovered that worked for you, or some advice you have for founders who are marketing, business director, technical, or still working in corporate and starting their
side hustle?
Yeah.
Advice I have, well, no. Do it, really. I'm such a big fan. And
well, as far as the practical aspect of wearing multiple hats and switching between the tasks or between the focus.
I would say, try sports and going outside. I would say exercise and going outside. Those would be my things. The whole switching off.
Well, not necessarily. I wasn't talking about the switching off. I was talking about switching between the roles that you have as either as a single founder or as a founder wearing multiple hats.
God, what a good question. I don't know. I'm terrible at this. What's really important?
Well,
So what is really important to me, and what I also teach my clients, is the concept of bringing your whole self to work, right? And that the concept of showing up as your full self and not pretending to be something that you're not because you feel that is required in the situation. And the reason why I feel so strongly about that is because I have seen in my own corporate career how beneficial it was when I started doing that. So in my legal, first 5 years of my career, I was very much not myself. I was very, very different from anybody else who worked there. And so I felt like I consistently had to assimilate to that and adjust. And I spent a shit ton of energy on making sure everybody was fine with me and how I was, basically. And that just cost a lot of energy. I wasted a lot of energy on that. And when I joined EF, the company, in Asia that I started the HR stuff for, I realized that if I could be myself, I could do a lot more. I just had more energy. I was able to produce at such a high level because I felt like the way who I was okay there. I could be my whole self. I mean, we had Lorenzo. We can talk about this, right? I remember meetings, and everybody's very official and very good, and we're talking numbers, and then somebody brings out a guitar, and in the middle of the, and it's like, the fact that people felt the freedom to do that, and this is just one random example, right? But there's lots of ways in which in that organization you can be yourself, and that is celebrated rather than tolerated, as I always say.
Was that me, Wies? I don't remember.
I don't know. No, I don't think it was you. I think it was in Hong Kong at the time. But this particular example, although I could totally see you do that, by the way. But so I think that is an incredibly important concept to me, and really, and not from a selfish perspective. It is nice. It is. I mean, it's true. It's nice to be yourself. It's nice to not have to waste energy on bullshit, right? We can all agree on that. But it's really a selfless concept when you realize that you're able to produce at such a high level, right? So you're doing it for the company that you work for, really, ultimately. Like, they're benefiting most from that. So it is my objective for all of my clients to find a place where they are celebrated. They are celebrated for who they are rather than tolerated, right? And I think the same goes for when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a founder, that in these multiple roles that you have, that they're all still part of you. So yes, practically speaking, you're now doing a marketing thing, and then God knows, I'm not a good entrepreneur. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time, right? So for me, this whole idea of switching between roles is a little bit alien because it's all me, right? All of it's part of me. It's just slightly, it's practically speaking, I'm doing something else, but it's all me. And that I would wish for anybody who started their own company, that they never felt that they had to pretend to be something that they're not, that they're uncomfortable with, or that is just not really them, because it's a waste of your energy, really.
I have a question from the public.
For the online public.
Yeah.
For the online public, for those who actually are starting a business. How do you justify your worth when you just start your business or sell your MVP?
How do you justify your worth? So the value of the work that you do is not based on, do you have the right diplomas for it? Do you have 5 to 10 years of experience in the field? Do you have XYZ? The value of the work that you do is decided on what is the value for the company or the organization or the person that you're working for. What's the value in their life, right? So when people come to me and they say, well, I'm just starting out, I can't in any way charge, high prices for this, right? I'm like, why not? It really depends on the situation. If you're crap at it, then it's going to be very difficult. But if you are good at what you do, then the mere fact that you've only just started is freaking irrelevant. If the value of what you're doing for the company or the organization or the person that you're working with has massive value, right? So you have to look at who are you doing it for and what's the value for them, right? Same mistake as people say, well, it only cost me a couple of hours, right? And they still use hours as a basis, as a metric for what they decide their price is going to be. And like, how it's freaking irrelevant for the organization that they that hires them or that they're working for, how many hours you spend on it. So this is kind of a similar concept where don't focus on what you don't have, right? Focus on what you are bringing to that organization. Try and quantify that, which is not as easy as doing an hourly basis, right? Or looking at your competitors, but it is more helpful, more effective.
Yeah.
I have another question. If we have 5 minutes.
Question, and we have we have to wrap up very soon. But one more question from the audience.
Yeah, this is, I feel called into action. What would you recommend to the men in the room to do at their companies in order to support the reduction of the existing salary gap between women and men?
Okay, first of all, hugs. Thanks for asking the question. Allies, very good. Wonderful question. What would you do? Have the conversation. Don't expect your women to come to you and say, I'm unhappy, I feel underpaid, I'm not doing the projects that I can be doing, I'm not working at my sort of top potential. don't assume that they'll come to you, but proactively reach out to them and say, how much magic can you do? Let's talk about that. And then freaking pay them, right, for it, duh. But really start off just inviting them for the conversation, which potentially has the side effect that you're going to be paying them more because they deserve it. And if you don't give it to them, they'll leave. And that's going to cost your company between 100 and 400% of their annual salary, which is a massive cost that nobody ever talks about. Or give them, the higher salary for the job that they're going to be doing, because you've just talked about how can you do more good stuff, basically. And so that's a higher value job, and so you need to pay them fairly for that. But start the conversation. Don't wait for them to come to you. They won't. Well, they might, but a large proportion of them won't. Mm-hmm. So.
And to wrap up every guest that we have at Startup Grind Zurich, I know I've already asked you a lot of questions.
Oh, good.
But there's a new series of questions we like to call rapid fire questions.
Oh, God.
And that means...
I get the concept,
quick answers.
Oh, God, okay.
And there's no right or wrong answers.
Yeah,
just
you
the first
say
thing.
that.
Just the
you
first thing that comes to mind.
Okay. All right, it's going to be awkward, people.
Well,
get ready.
In the last 50 events, we only had to edit one answer. So
this will be the second. No doubt, yeah.
What's one item that you own that you would not sell?
My first thing was kids, but you don't own them, do you? What I wouldn't sell. Jesus, I don't know.
That's okay if you're not attached to anything, then that's good.
I don't think I'm attached to anything.
What is your most...
Sorry, really boring, yeah.
What is your most unusual skill?
Do you want to hear it? I told you it was getting awkward. Okay, listen. My kids are very impressed with this. Do the hamster thing. Do the hamster thing, yeah.
What's more important? Strength, speed, or stamina?
Stamina.
Which historical figure do you admire, current or past?
Barack Obama.
What is your favorite season of the year?
Summer, for sure. Summer at the body here. Can you beat it? No.
When was the last time that you tried something new?
Ooh, fun times. Yeah, the cycling, the racing, and then going full speed. Oh, still so scared. Yes, that's fairly recent.
Cats or dogs?
Cats, ultimately. Yeah.
Beer or wine?
Organic red wine is the only thing I'm allowed.
The favorite app on your phone?
Email. I'm really sorry, I'm this boring. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah.
Team or single founder?
Team.
What's something on your bucket list?
Ooh, lots of things. Meeting Barack Obama. Yeah, let's go for that.
And if you could have the attribute of an animal, what would you choose?
Ah. You know how bears sleep all winter long? That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd really like that.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it, and all of the wonderful answers that you had for us.
Thank you.